All right, good morning. We are at July the 9th, 2023. And I can report to you that time is marching on. Looking back over my 73 years, I can tell you that it's just like a snap of the fingers. I did manage to string olive oil this morning with not a great deal of difficulty. It wasn't real easy, but so now I did clean the upper limb with a little bit of dishwashing liquid and a little bit of water. And after I dried it, I put a tiny bit of olive oil on the limb so that the string would slide up better. And I don't know if that fixed it or not, but olive oil responded to the olive oil. Okay. The question that I'm going to ask this morning, I'm going to shoot a little bit, but I'll go ahead and ask the question. And I want to ask you out there, what is the biggest lie that the devil is telling us? This lie keeps us in a perpetual darkness, and we are unable to come to Christ as long as we believe this lie. So while I'm shooting a little bit, then to give you time to think about it. Now, this is just my idea that came to me this morning. It doesn't mean it's even correct. You may have a better one. It may be that all the lies that the devil tells are all the same. This popped into my head, so I'm going to go with it and call it the biggest lie that Satan tells us and that we believe that keeps us from coming to Christ. All right, let's see what we can do on the pig. 8.5 is the brace height that I have today. Now I tightened it a little bit because I thought that the loops of the boat were a little sloppy. One of my friends, one of my listeners asked me, hey, what is your brace height? And it got me to thinking about it. It's usually around 7.5, 7.75, but I tightened it up a little, and now this very moment it's 8.5. This seems to all shoot the same to me, but you know, within reason. Okay, here we go. Split finger, floating anchor, staring at the place that I want to hit. I don't think you could do any better than that. That's a little bit low and forward on that one, but I think I killed him on the first shot. That's a little low. I got a good group going there, but I'm going to try to pull it up. That's a little more sure right there. Shoot a little higher. That was a bad shot right there. I went back and forth. I was using the arrows to aim with. I was using the fletching, and my eye flicked back and forth between the forward group and the backward group. It's a pleasure to shoot olive oil again. I will mention this. I used to own a Howard Hill longbow. In fact, it was my first Howard Hill longbow, and it was called a Timbo. And it pulled 65 pounds. Timbo was the name of that bow, and it pulled 65 pounds. This one here is a Wesley Special, and it pulls 50 pounds. I think I could skewer a pig at this distance right here, which is approaching 15 yards. That was a good one right there. All right, we're going to cut the camera off just for a minute, and I'm going to pull those arrows, and we'll get right back to you. All right, back from pulling the arrows. Okay, I'll call it the master lie that the devil told. The master lie of the devil was that you and I, yeah. You and I can be good. We can be good. And we need to be good so that we can please God and enter into the Garden of Eden again. From whence we were kicked out. Well, the fact that we got kicked out, but humanity got kicked out of the Garden of Eden proves my point right there. But what is it to think that you can be good? Well, it's a direct contradiction of what Yeshua the Messiah, Jesus Christ, said in the Bible, and that is, there's none good but God. So if there's none good but God, the only way we can be good is if we are God. So this first lie that we could be good causes us to, without realizing it, claim that we're God. So we're seeing millions and millions and billions of people for thousands of years start their children off telling them the big lie. They even wrote a song about it. It's called Johnny Be Good. Johnny Be Good. Johnny Be God is what you're really saying, because we're not good. So we can't be good, because you may as well ask a frog to leap over the moon. We aren't good. It causes us to do all kinds of things. The number one immediate thing is we're claiming to be God if we're thinking that we're good. And we do think we're good many times before we understand, because we think that we got to be good to go to heaven. Well, the Pharisees in Jesus' time were making that error also. They thought being good was keeping the law, keeping the Sabbath, washing their hands in certain ways, doing all of these religious observances. And of course they were so deceived that they weren't even keeping their own law that they had embellished on Moses' original law. Another thing that causes you, that keeps you out of Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, which I am equating to heaven, walking with God, is that the only way that we can fool ourselves into thinking that we're good is to find some poor, miserable other human being that we think we're doing better than. So I asked a guy one time who had this philosophy. He thought he was saved, and he said, he started telling me all of the people that were worse than he was. So the only way that we can mistakenly think that we're good is find somebody that's in some kind of obvious sin worse than we are. Let's just pick on a guy that beats his wife on a regular basis. I knew a guy like that one time, and I'll tell you that in a minute. It's a funny story to me. And I'll tell it because he's passed away and his wife has passed away now, so I wouldn't tell it on them if they were still alive. Let's say a guy that beats his wife on a regular basis, and you don't beat your wife on a regular basis. Therefore, in your mind, you're good because you don't do that. But you're actually committing a sin worse than beating your wife every day. Well, that's probably a bad one to pick right there. But some sin that you don't do and they do. We're not good. All right, back to the guy. This guy was a friend of mine. And he was an alcoholic. And his wife was an alcoholic. And they would get drunk and he would haul off and beat the fool out of his wife. Every now and then, not every day. I mean, when he got drunk, he turned into a demon. And one time, his wife finally got enough of it. And she waited until he was slam drunk out of his mind, passed out on the bed. And she went in there and she put a sheet over his head. And she took out a baseball bat and just about killed him. I don't know if that cured the problem or not, but I guess turnabout is fair play. That was, in her way, it was almost self-defense. But you know the pitiful thing about it was, she would not call the police and report that her husband was beating the fool out of her. I do not know. I actually called the sheriff. This guy showed up that morning, beat all up. That's how I know the story. What happened to you? And he told me what his wife had done. I thought I was a good citizen, and after he left, I called the sheriff's department. I said, look, I want to report a very serious spousal abuse problem. I think that one of the other of them is going to get killed here pretty soon. And he said, who is it? And I told him the name, and he said, I said, what are you going to do about it? And he said, I'm not going to do anything about it. I said, why? He said, I've already had that particular case reported to me several times. And I've gone out and investigated it, and neither party would tell on the other one. They refused to press charges. He said, I already know they won't do anything. And I said, okay, thank you, Sheriff. All right, I don't know if that helped our story or not, our presentation or not, but that was my experience with spousal abuse in the extreme. Good shot. We're not good. Well, I think that's the biggest lie that the devil ever told. And it causes us to make other spiritual errors. My understanding of the Bible is that we cannot enter into that area known as the Garden of Eden. I think it's the same thing as what we're calling heaven. And I don't know that it's an actual place either. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. It may be strictly a metaphor for our relationship, our perfect relationship with God. I don't know, and I just don't know. I think it might be, fine. And again, it might just be a metaphorical image of where we were when we were innocent before we believed the lie that Satan told us. How do we? First, we have to understand we're not good if we're going to get back. As long as we think we're good, and as long as we compare ourselves to other sinners and just pick out everybody that we know that's worse than us and use that as a comparison, we cannot get in a relationship with God because we're telling a big lie. We're not good. That's what Yeshua, Jesus, came for, was to save us from that. We think we're God. What was the devil's big problem? He thought he was God, or at least equal to God. All right, that's my presentation this morning. I'll tell you this, I usually tell you a little bit about the weather here in South Georgia. The last couple of days have been extremely hot and humid and uncomfortable. We have not wanted to go out in the heat of the day, and of course we did. So, you know, we'd go out and do some stuff and then come right back in. It's only going to be, I believe, 89 today, and it's probably not going to be quite as humid. I feel a little bit of relief from the humidity. It's as pleasant as you could want right now. I think it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. A couple of more shots. I'll take that. I'm enjoying this split finger floating anchor with olive oil, my longbow. But I will tell you this, I've told you before, after I get on out past 15 yards or so, it seems to be diminishing returns in accuracy with this method, and that's where the gap method starts to shine. I don't really think we have a whole lot of business shooting at a deer much further than this, so I'll do a gap here. I got 2 arrows left. I'm going to do a gap, and then I'll go, I might do 2 gaps. The gap slapped it right in there too. Now I'll go back to the split finger. Slap it in there. I'm going to end this with the Lord's Prayer, and I wish you would say it with me. I think it's, I said I was going to, we saw yesterday on the internet news that some big, fancy, high up religious leader, some archbishop or something like that, put out a big announcement that he thought Jesus was making a theological error in the Lord's Prayer, and he was going to correct it. You know, he was going to catch Jesus in a mistake. Well, my opinion of it is you can't possibly catch God in a mistake. But anyway, the big deal was that the Lord's Prayer starts off, Our Father, and they don't like that because they don't like the patriarchal system that God set up. So Our Father, according to him, was a big mistake by Jesus. All right. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and glory forever. Amen.